Hit it. What is up, everyone? We are done with the Alabama football game. Alabama, Missouri. The score is final. Pulling up the stat sheet right now. The final score, 38-19. I'm Lauren Sisler. This is Matt Scalisi hanging out with you. Thanks for hanging with us. I know it's 9:30 at night. First week of SEC football. Alabama getting the win, 38-19. And, of course, that last-second touchdown by Missouri skews the score just a little bit, Matt, as we're sitting here waiting to go live. Our producer says, well, I got to change the scorecard there. Well, yes.
We appreciate Patrick.
We appreciate Patrick and all his hard work, our entire AL.com team. Everyone has been on the Slack channel all day, just rocking and rolling, getting all the videos out, the graphics, everything we need to bring you the best coverage from the Alabama Crimson Tide. So we appreciate it. Matt, 38-19, Alabama, Missouri, Alabama on the road. I just want to get your first thoughts about what you saw out on that field tonight.
Well, it felt pretty similar to a lot of Alabama openers that we've seen under Nick Saban. To me, I think Alabama had a very clear talent advantage. I know this was an SEC game, and Alabama's not used to opening the season with an SEC opponent, but this was clearly a mismatch, and Alabama took advantage of it very early on. And, from there, they kind of did what Alabama teams do in week one, which is play sloppy after you get an initial lead, put some starters in, take some starters out, put some backups in, watch them kind of panic a little bit because they're getting their first collegiate experience, which Nick Saban actually secretly really loves to see. He gets an easy win for his team, and he also gets a bunch of film out there that he can berate these guys for the rest of the week and say, look, y'all think you're good, but we got all these things we got to work on. You all made all of these big mistakes, and we can't afford to do those for the rest of the season. So this is kind of just how Nick Saban would like to draw up a week one.
Yeah, I think, you kind of hit the nail on the head there. I think that this was a performance that we kind of expected from Alabama. Mac Jones having a great night, 18-24, 249 yards, 2 touchdowns. We did see Bryce Young. I know in the pregame show, the question was, when are we going to see Bryce Young? And I guess he came in about a minute left. He was out there warming up midway through the third quarter, came in late in the third quarter, was 5 for 8, 54 yards, no touchdowns, but just overall, kind of what we expected. And then defensively, some big plays. That one big hit on Missouri quarterback Sean Robinson. Wow, like that was pretty crazy, knocking the helmet off. Just overall thoughts. I guess I'll start with the offensive side of the football. Jaylen Waddle, Najee Harris are pretty much the weapons we thought they would be. So just your thoughts on their performance and sort of the guys that Mac Jones has to distribute the football to, and just first look on those guys.
Yeah, I mean, I think that Najee Harris, it was very evident early on, was going to be a big part of what they were doing tonight. 17 carries for 98 yards and 3 touchdowns. One of those probably should have been a Jaylen Waddle touchdown, and Najee Harris ends up sort of having to come in and punch it in from 1 yard out. But look, either way, between the two of them, 5 touchdowns on the night. That's basically Alabama's offense along with Mac Jones tonight. So those guys are the core of this offense. I think we probably expected that coming in, along with Devontae Smith, who also had a nice night, 8 catches for 89 yards, and was a big presence on the field, I think. Mac Jones had, I would say, for the most part, a very consistent performance, which is what you want to see. A pretty mistake-free performance. He finished 18-24, like you said, for just shy of 250 yards. To me, what stood out most about Mac Jones is looked calm, looked very poised in the pocket, never looked panicked. And Missouri did try to get pretty aggressive and come after him a few times, but he sort of very patiently worked the edges of the field and opened things up for the run in the middle. And ultimately, I think that's the combination that you're going to see from Alabama a lot this season. They're capable of winning a bunch of different ways, but this is one of those ways. I think tonight we saw a Missouri defense that was actually pretty strong up the middle, and it was going to be tough to just run into the teeth of them all
Mm-hmm.
night unless Alabama could start to soften them up in the middle by stretching the field. And they're really good at doing that when they have Jaylen Waddle and Devontae Smith on the edges. So I think we saw, how dangerous this Alabama offense can be because of how multifaceted it is and how versatile they can be. So really can't really ask for much more from an Alabama offensive performance, and didn't really have to do anything that crazy. It was pretty vanilla. It actually reminded me a lot of what the Alabama offenses looked like under gosh, now I'm forgetting his name, Lauren. I'm becoming an old man, but the guy who was the offensive coordinator under Saban early on in his tenure, he became the Florida head coach.
I was about to say Lane Kiffin.
Not Lane Kiffin. No, definitely this is pre Lane Kiffin. This is old school, hard nosed, Nick Saban Alabama football from 2008 to 2012 or so. And, I think we saw them running out of the pistol a lot. We saw Alabama running to the left side. This is a team that feels like they can out physical people. And, honestly, we haven't seen that in a few years, but they can be just as dangerous going vertically as well. So they can do a little bit of everything. You don't want to see this from an Alabama offense if you're an opposing SEC team right now.
Yeah, and are you speaking of Jim McElwain?
Jim McElwain. Look, we do this live, okay? And so it's going to be blatantly obvious when my brain just stops working for a minute, and it does that sometimes.
It is quite all right.
When we all used to work in an office together, thank you, Michael Piazza, and probably a bunch of other people that were screaming at me that while I couldn't remember his name.
It's okay. Thank you, guys. Katrina, Thank you. Yes, we appreciate the insight. Anytime you need to jump in and help us with this, we appreciate it. We appreciate also.
Yeah, it's going to be a long season of this, guys.
Yeah, the positive reinforcement's always good. The condescending comments, no. We like the positive reinforcement.
Look, I deserve the condescending ones too. It's fine.
Nah, come on, Maddie. Look, I want to agree with you in just talking about Mac Jones. And I said this in the pregame show. I think anytime as a quarterback that this becomes your team, there's not all these things. Look, I get it. I think Bryce Young and Mac Jones, there's that quarterback competition in fall camp. Naturally, there's a competition. But look, we talked about this before. I think Bryce Young didn't get a chance to come in spring, didn't get the reps in. And I think this really belonged to Mac Jones from the beginning. And even if Bryce Young would have had a spring, I don't know that things would have been any different. And when you give a quarterback that confidence, it really showed up tonight. I think you just see this transition from sort of that young, Tua's hurt, so now I've got to come in, I got to carry the team on my shoulders, to this is my team. I'm commanding this offense, and it absolutely showed out there tonight. And I think that has to give Alabama fans, something to be excited about, and really no surprise. I think that he did a lot of great things tonight. When we go to the defensive side of the football, that was a big question, Matt. Obviously, last year, I remember Pete Golding at one point during a meeting when I covered a game late in the season for ESPN. Pete Golding specifically said, even Nick Saban kind of chimed in on this same thing, said in the history of their coaching careers had never seen a defense so banged up before as they had. And of course, Pete Golding saying, I'm not making excuses, but it's just a fact that everyone was so banged up. And so the first person I point to that obviously pops off the page, Dylan Moses. Dylan Moses is back. He was out last year with injury. He is such a playmaker and such a game changer for those guys.
Oh, there's no question. I think we heard a lot of people say last year what a big loss he was. And I think it's even more evident when you see him back out there again with this team. I mean, not only is he just a great individual player and a great leader to that defense and who makes great calls and understands what he's seeing, but also him being out there frees up a Christian Harris to play more to his own personal strengths. And we saw Christian Harris flying all over the field tonight. I mean, he was everywhere. And that's because of the security that they can have from having Dylan Moses back in his spot again. So the whole defense benefits from having Moses back as a part of this team again. I feel like overall, even though, look, Missouri ends up putting 19 points up, partly because they tacked on a late touchdown. I think having the backups in there in the fourth quarter gives them another touchdown. I think it's actually this was an even more dominating performance by the defense than it looks like on the sheet at the end of the night. But, even with all of this, Missouri only ends up with 69 yards rushing. This is a team with one of the better running backs coming back in the SEC this year. And that's off of 34 rushing attempts. They averaged 2 yards per carry tonight. And that we really have seen this Alabama defense struggle in a lot of different areas the last couple of years. And they didn't tonight. They shut down the running game. They really confused the Missouri quarterbacks for the most part. They were very aggressive. They came after them and didn't give up a ton of big plays down the field as well. So I feel like this is really a very promising start for this Alabama defense. And like you said, not really that shocking because they were finally able to get through an offseason without multiple injuries to defensive starters.
Yeah, no doubt about it. And Linda Jones, I love you. She's out here saying today was awesome. Just watching SEC competition. No doubt about it. We love the energy. We love the excitement. And I want to pop up a graphic real quick, Matt, that our producer Patrick has mentioned. Dylan Moses talking about basically missing last season, saying it pisses me off. Am I allowed to say that on here?
That's fine. That's fine.
It ticks me off.
It's 9:30 at night. The kids are in bed.
It makes me mad. It makes me mad. It ticks me off knowing that I could have made a difference. Look, I'd really messed that one up, y'all. Again, hey, this is live stream for you late at night.
Lauren's so trying to make this PG.
Hey, remember that time I said crap on a stick? Didn't know if that was allowed to be said on live, whatever this is. So I just said it again.
Yeah.
Hopefully nobody takes offense to that. Anyways, Dylan Moses, again, such an impact player and really just such a leader on this team. And I think that's such a big part of this, having a defensive leader, someone to really step up and carry that. And you got to think about this. When you put this in context, we're talking about a lot of guys that have come in, obviously a lot of new faces that are always cycled in and out. And when you don't have an off season, we don't have spring ball, when you don't have that full summer to really connect and like build that chemistry. Look, these guys are spending, however many hours on Zoom calls. It just is not the same as sitting in the training room or sitting in the weight room, working out together, all those things. And I think you've got to have those leaders that really help you to really define that chemistry and define that identity of the team. And more important than ever, because of COVID and because of the lack of time that all these guys have had together. So having a guy like Dylan Moses back is just someone I think that is going to be so instrumental, not only with his skill set and what he can do on the field, but what he brings to the table and bringing the team together and the defense, especially off the field. So huge asset to this football team. My last question for you, Matt, as we get ready to wrap up, I guess, obviously there's always going to be things to work on. We know that about this Alabama football team. Anxious to go back and listen to Nick Saban's comments. Does Alabama have a kryptonite? And one thing I'm going to say, because it brings me back to the top of what you were saying about, Nick Saban having all this film to go back and just like, woo, flashing these guys' faces, because we know Nick Saban is not going to be he's always going to be critical. But I think the kryptonite, I have to say it, has got to be the mask, because now these guys can't truly see the Nick Saban face, right? We've seen in practice Nick Saban wearing the clear mask sometimes, obviously the gator, whatever, switching things out. But, those guys' faces are fully covered. And I think that it's interesting because you don't really get to see the full wrath of Saban. And if you're a player and you look over at that sideline and you see the Nick Saban that is fired up, upset about whatever, it's coming to you this week in practice. And I just wonder if that has a factor in it, because these guys aren't getting to see that full Nick Saban presentation.
I think you can still tell that he's mad without seeing the bottom half.
I mean, you can see that he's mad, but when you don't see the lip flap, man, it's a different deal. Okay.
I definitely think that I do wonder how overall it will affect communication. And look, to be serious about it, one thing that could have possibly affected Alabama tonight was, as far as we're aware, the only person who got affected by COVID on the Alabama side in this game tonight. The safeties coach for Alabama was not there because of a potential infection. So, and we did see later in the game some busted coverage from the safeties, especially the younger guys. So I don't think obviously it didn't affect Alabama's chances of winning the game tonight, but it does sort of show you how something like this could affect Alabama down the road. If you are missing a coach, that is an interesting aspect that I don't think a lot of people have thought about when it comes to the current environment that we're playing this season in. Is, coaches do a lot of stuff during the game. They're communicating with their players sometimes while they're on the field. So it could definitely be a factor at some point. I would say in terms of other weaknesses to look for right now, to me, the only time that Alabama really consistently struggled and looked rough at all tonight was after they pulled the starters. But that is important to note. And I think it's worth noting that even though Alabama has a highly touted depth as a program, the younger guys are not up to the same level as the older guys, and they haven't had the reps in the offseason that they normally would have. So there's a bit of a drop off. I think keeping the starters healthy, we did see Evan Neal go down at some point tonight. That could potentially be an issue. We'll hear from Nick Saban shortly, just how serious that injury was. Hopefully it wasn't anything that will keep him out long term. But, I think it was good on the one hand to have those young guys go out there and kind of get their butts handed to them a little bit tonight. I think you want that to happen to your freshmen when you put them in their first collegiate game, because you don't want them getting overconfident. You want them to go out there and say, man, I got a lot to learn. This is the game is moving a lot faster than I was
college ball,
for.
baby. Yes, absolutely.
So on the one hand, it's good, and Nick Saban can use that to motivate them going forward to get better. On the other hand, if he's going to need any of those guys to come in the game early in the season, it could get a little dicey. Yeah,
no doubt. And the safeties coach that you were talking about, Charles Kelly, I guess we don't know if he tested positive or just had contact tracing. Is that what you're talking about?
Well, he was not there. They did not give us a specific reason. I think it's a reasonable assumption that that's potentially not that he had tested positive, but that he was not there for reasons related to COVID.
Right. And I think it is interesting because one example of this, Mike Norvell, obviously being a big one and in the sort of the national spotlight, being unavailable because of COVID, that was released, I guess, last week, that he would be quarantining and having to kind of go through that. So, I've talked to several coaches in this process because we're hearing about all the players, but then what happens if a coach goes out? Totally different ballgame. And to your point, that adds to the chemistry or the lack thereof, and really the communication. And it definitely changes things up. And coaches have said, hey, we've got a backup plan. If I go out, so-and-so will come in for me. But you have to imagine that that's still going to be quite a bit different and just adds a whole nother wrinkle and a level to this. I mean, hypothetically, and I don't even like to assume this, but your head coach goes out, Nick Saban is not there. How much does that change the dynamic of this game if he's not there because of contact tracing, COVID, whatever? And, again, I don't like to speculate. We don't like to have the hypotheticals, but when you have a primary coach or even an OC or DC out, that is going to change the entire chemistry and really just the entire makeup of a team, even if that team has played 10 games and you feel like they are, at their prime or at their peak during a season.
I mean, look, if the coaches didn't matter on game day, they wouldn't be there, right?
That's absolutely right.
They make a huge difference, and I think it's not just about practice, and it's not just about forming a game plan. It has a lot to do with the decisions you make on the day, and I think Nick Saban in particular is a coach that's very hands-on and gets very involved. And we saw him tonight going over and talking to players on the bench after Missouri would score, or even after minor mistakes. He is a guy who likes to really get his hands dirty, so to speak, when it comes to coaching up his players during a game. Yeah. So it would make a huge difference.
If you take note, that's usually when there are mistakes versus when things are good. Sometimes you have coaches that come over there and really ramp them up, but he tends to do that before they get over to the bench, right?
I think so. I think the kudos are probably self-evident. When Nick Saban's happy with you, but
you get a little smile
really know when he's not happy.
That's right. So Alabama winning this one 38-19. Again, a late score there by Missouri to go up by another touchdown to 19 points. But again, great insight. another win in the books for Alabama. I say another one, the first one, right? First one of the season.
1-0.
1-0.
Hey,
Lots
there's
of
a
great
lot of teams.
football.
There's a lot of big teams that wish they were 1-0 right now and are not today. So definitely Alabama would rather be where they are than where LSU or Oklahoma are tonight.
That is absolutely right. Good stuff, Matt. We appreciate you as always. Get some good rest tonight. Enjoy the rest of your weekend, and then we'll head into week 2 and take a look. But stay tuned for Nick Saban press conference. That'll be coming up shortly. And to all the viewers out there, we hope you enjoyed week 1 of the SEC college football season. And we'll see you back here with more updates for the Alabama Crimson Tide on all of our social media channels and, of course, on AL.com later tonight, tomorrow, and going into next week. See ya.